Good morning and welcome to Third Unitarian Church. My name is Gail Homeland, and I'm a member of the Worship and Arts Committee, which is leading the service today. We're so glad that you can be with us here this morning to celebrate life, to grieve our losses, to connect with one another. We hope you find Third Unitarian Church to be a place that enriches your spirit and motivates you to take action in the world. Now for a few announcements. On Sunday, May 3rd, TUC's annual live auction fundraiser will take place immediately following the service. Winnetka Congregation is a great supporter of the Austin Scholarship Fund, and they are having a concert this afternoon, and additional information is on the table in the concourse about that concert. Our coffee hour coffers are very low. Coffee hour is a wonderful time for all of us, and most of the food and the labor is donated. But there are lots of coffee and supplies that must be purchased. So please be reminded to donate the $1 or $2 as you grab goodies, and check in with somebody if there's something more that can happen about that. Next week, there are next week's forum. Robert Burns will speak on a path to prosperity. He'll talk about his plan for the future, as well as commenting on current trends and the economic crisis in Greece. His dissertation studies in Marxian economics at the University of Massachusetts were under the TUC favorite Richard Wolff. Next Sunday, our minister, Jennifer Nordstrom, will return again to the pulpit as we continue to explore this month's theme of Revelation. Building a multicultural community requires new ways of knowing and understanding. We sometimes learn through pain and sometimes through joy. We need to be open to revelation coming through a variety of methods, including through making mistakes. Minister Jennifer Nordstrom and either a TUC worship associate or a mystery guest will convene. One last announcement. Except for the hymn of meditation, all this morning's songs are coming from the inserts in your inside your bulletin. Again, welcome to Third Unitarian Church.
May the light of this chalice remind us that our search for truth and light is ongoing and is enhanced and nurtured by every person we meet. May we honor the light in each other. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth. From the 1999 movie The Matrix. This morning's opening words are by Jean M. Olson, a poem entitled Materializing. In what form did the Spirit appear to you today? The blossom of a flower, the tug of a child's hand, the silent, twinkling stars, an old woman smiling at the bus stop, a lover's gentle hug, a presence so close to your soul you could almost touch it, words of truth formed unbidden in your mind, the holy disguised in so many ways. May your senses open wide in recognition. Please rise in body or in spirit as we all sing the opening hymn, number 1040, Hush. It's printed in your order of service.
Join me in the words of our covenant found in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Forever.
Yes? Okay, this is a bad case of stripes. And you may have heard this story before. And you've heard it before. Okay. Well, why we're reading this book today is because we're talking about Revelation, which is kind of a juicy word. Does anyone know what Revelation is? It's kind of a discovery when you find things out. Now, there are people out there who will tell you that they have a revelation to give you, and you can say yes or no. Or you might feel something come whelming up inside you that says, oh, now I understand why a little seed grows into a flower. So that's a revelation, a discovery. And the best ones usually come from inside, I think. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla was always worried about what other people thought of her. Today, she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits, but none seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror, and then she screamed. Her mother ran into the room, and she screamed too. Oh my heavens, she cried, you're completely covered with stripes. This was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camilla's forehead. Do you feel all right, she asked. I feel fine, Camilla answered, but just look at me. You get back in bed this instant, her mother ordered. You're not going to school today. Camilla was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what the other kids would say. That Oak Park Library. Okay, we'll continue to read. You watch the bug. My hand? No. Okay, everything's fine. And she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camilla. Most extraordinary, he exclaimed. I've never seen anything like it. Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose aches, pains, chills, hot flashes, dizziness, drowsiness, shortness of breath, or uncontrollable twitching? No, Camilla told him. I feel fine. Well then, Dr. Bumble said, turning to Mrs. Cream, I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up those stripes in a few days. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me. And off you went. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Crayon and Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal, but when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she broke out in stars. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, let's see some purple polka dots. And sure enough, Camilla turned all purple polka dotty. Someone else said, checkerboard. And a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you could change the remote channels on a TV. That night,
Mr. Harms, the school principal, called. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cream," he said. "I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school. She's just too much of a distraction, and I've been getting calls from the other parents. They're afraid those stripes may be contagious, catchy." Camilla was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her. Now nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better. "Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart?" he asked. "No, thank you," sighed Camilla. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans, but she had been laughed at enough for liking lima beans. Should I skip some? Well, yes, I see," Dr. Bumble mumbled when Mr. Cream phoned the next day. "I think I'd better bring in the specialist. We'll be right over." About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived, and with 4 people in long white coats, he introduced them to the Creams. "This is Dr. Grop, Sponge, Cricket, and Young." Then the specialist went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and jabbed, tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. "Well, it's not the mumps, concluded Dr. Crop. "Or the measles," said Dr. Sponge. "Definitely not chickenpox," put in Dr. Cricket. "Or sunburn," said Dr. Young. "Try these," said the specialist, and they each handed her a bottle filled with different colored pills. "Take one of each before bed," said Dr. Grop. Then they filed out the front door, followed by Dr. Bumble. That night, Camilla took her medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different, but when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit quite right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant, multicolored pill with her face on it. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mrs. Cream called, but this time, instead of the specialists, he brought the experts. Dr. Gord and Mr. Mellon were the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The experts wrote down lots of numbers, then they huddled together and whispered. Dr. Gord finally spoke. "It might be a virus," he announced with authority. Suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camilla. "Or possibly some form of bacteria," said Mr. Mellon. And out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. "Or it could be a fungus," added Dr. Gordon. Instantly, Camilla was covered with different colored fungus blotches. The experts looked at Camilla, then at each other. "We need to go back over these numbers again back at the lab," Dr. Gord explained. "We'll call you when we know something." But the experts didn't have a clue, much less a cure. But now the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon, a huge crowd was camped out on the front lawn. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, and old medicine men, a guru, and even a veterinarian and a vegetarian. Each so-called, and a Unitarian, each so-called cure only added to poor Camilla's strange appearance until it was hard to even recognize her. She sprouted roots and berries and crystals and feathers and a long furry tail, and there was a chalice candlelight on the top of her head. But nothing worked. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she could cure Camilla. "Close your eyes," she said, "breathe deeply, and become one with your room." "Oh, I wish you hadn't said that," said Camilla. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her dresser, and 2 paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran from the house. "What are we going to do?" cried Mrs. Cream. "It just keeps getting worse and worse." And she began to sob. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock on the front door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman like Irene Mostek. And she dresses like her too, who was just as plump and sweet as a raspberry. Well, you're not plump, but you're sweet. "Excuse me," she said brightly, "but I think I can help." She went into Camilla's room and looked around. "My goodness," she said with a shake of her head, "what we have here is a bad case of stripes, one of the worst I've ever seen." She pulled a container of small green beans from her bag. "Here," she said, "these might do the trick." "Are those magic beans?" asked Mrs. Cream. "Oh my, no," replied the kind old woman. "There's no such thing. These are just plain old lima beans. I'll bet you'd like some, wouldn't you?" she asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big, heaping plateful of lima beans more than just about anything, but she was still afraid to admit it. "Yuck," she said. "No one likes lima beans, especially me." "Oh dear," the old woman said sadly, "I guess I was wrong about you," and she put the beans back in her bag and started toward the door. Camilla watched the woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good, and being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she was going through. She finally couldn't stand it anymore. "Wait," she cried. "The truth is, I really love lima beans." "I thought so," said the old woman who looked like Irene Mostek with a smile. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. "Mmm," said Camilla. I really didn't know this story was this long. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, and squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around. When it stopped, there stood Camilla in her underwear, and everything was back to normal. "I'm cured," she shouted. "Yes," said the old woman, "I knew the real you was in there somewhere." She patted Camilla on the head, and then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterwards, Camilla wasn't quite the same because she had learned something about herself, about the real Camilla. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never ever had a touch of stripes again. So do you know who the real you is? All right.
The real me is me.
Very good. Excellent answer. It comes and it goes and it grows and it changes. But listen in here to yourself and usually you find the answers. Okay, back to your seats. No, don't go back to your seats.
I just need my helpers for my class. So the Worship Arts Committee had a very interesting discussion about the theme of Revelation as we prepared for April's services. And while Revelation is often sprung upon us unexpectedly, kind of like Camilla, it is just as often found only when we're looking for it. as Neo sought desperately for Morpheus and his truth in the Matrix. Either way, revelation is active. It's a process of unfolding, followed by taking action based on what is revealed. Sometimes through this process of unfolding and unpeeling, undoing, we find our entire lives turned inside out. Sometimes undoing is the only way the truth can be revealed. Please remain seated, and if you don't have an origami crane in your hand, wave your arms so we can get to you. If there's okay, we're out. There's some. Hope to get to almost everybody, if not everybody. Please remain seated, and I'm going to ask that you unfold the origami crane. And in undoing the beautiful art, turn them inside out and see what's revealed to you as we all sing our meditation hymn, 123. We'll do that first and then we'll meditate some more.
You should each have an unfolded revelation in your lap now, or cranes. But their undoing is your enlightenment. Did everyone figure out how to unfold your crane? Take the head and the tail and push them back together first, and then you can fold the wings down. This is important. Read the word printed on that piece of paper again. And then close your eyes if you wish. Assume a comfortable but alert, upright position. Press your feet against the floor and feel the earth holding you up. Feel your body against the pew, behind you and under you. Gently bring your attention to your breath and note each inhalation and exhalation without trying to change anything or breathe in any specific way. Simply attend. As effortlessly as possible, begin repeating your words silently to yourself, over and over. There's no need to try to change or stop your thoughts in any way. Just keep breathing and whispering the word silently to yourself. When you're ready, gently leave off repeating the word and slowly bring your consciousness back to the present moment, here and now.